Michael Palaiologos allowed the Genoese, a great naval and commercial power of the time, to found a trading post on the island. In 1304, Chios is occupied by Genoese commander Benedetto Zaccaria of Phocaea, and the fortress is further fortified. His hegemony would be maintained until 1329, when Andronicus III of the Palaiologan dynasty drove out Martino Zaccaria by force, and he himself supervised the fortification of the fortress. Chios was going to remain a Byzantine island until 1346, when the Genoese, led by Vignolo, occupied it and maintained their predominance over Chios until 1566. The administrative centre, the market, and the residences of the Genoese all lay within the walls of the fortress. The dominant object that mostly stimulated the Genoese interest in the island was the trade of the mastic. The latter was a universally unique product and one that was very valuable to the island, with a parity relationship between its own price and that of silver. Upon Genoese domination, the exploitation of the product passes into the hands of the Mahona, a commercial and shipping company of the time that organised and controlled the entire process, from the growing of the mastic trees and the stages of elaboration of the product to the trafficking of the good across the seas and its trading around Europe. To this end, the mastic villages were built in the south part of the island. They are enclosed fortified settlements, modelled on the Ligurian architecture, which ensured both protection of the valuable crops from the all-too-frequent pirate raids and control of the local population as indispensable labour force. The fortified villages are ruled by the central administration that had its seat in the town fortress. The villages have been preserved to a considerable degree and are still inhabited, thus representing a unique specimen of the medieval period in the Aegean Sea. The same time period is also characterised by a more widely spread use of powder and signals the repairs made to the foundations of the fortress. In addition, the fortifications were modernised in response to the newly appeared fire guns. According to inscriptions and other archived material, the fortress, with its triple ramparts and a double moat, was fortified by prominent architects of the time, such as Leonardo d'Andrea and Giorgio de Corona. The presence of a strong one-storey building near the maritime walls is indicative. In the memories of the local inhabitants, the building has been recorded as a powder magazine. The deep moat that surrounded the fortress was a basic defensive component. The water entered the fortress from two different sides, and the latter became an island in itself. The fortifying complex was connected with the Burgo by means of bridges. Burgo was the name of the area outside of the walls. The fixed part of the bridges was made of stone, while their moving part consisted of a wooden bridge that was raised every evening or in the event of a siege, thus sealing the gates and isolating the fortress from the rest of the town. There were 3 gates, the Porta Maggiore being the main one, which led to the interior of the fortress. After the Porta Maggiore, the two additional gates created a labyrinthine entrance. In this way, they created a second line of defence against invaders, in case they managed to force the main gate. The defensive system of the fortress was based on big bastions that rose all around it and protruded above its walls. This system, also known by the name of Fonte Bastionato, was born out of the need to fully cover the fortresses, as much with respect to exercising supervision over land and sea as with regard to providing protection from the enemy fire guns. Several of these towers have been preserved high, like the Antonio Zeno bastion, which was reconstructed by the Venetians, and the northwestern tower with the coat of arms of the Giustiniani family. Battlements, cannon holes, coat of arms and blazons of the Genoese, underground archways and small windows all make up a scenery that seems to be taken out of another faraway time. Great architects and artists of that time period worked together in order to build the interior of the fortress. Among others, the Gangini brothers, Michelozzo Michelozzi, and Francisco di Bisogni. The most notable sample of that period is the Giustiniani Palace. It was named after the homonymous family which played a most important part throughout the years of the Genoese presence on the island. Together with the adjacent dark prison, it formed part of the building complex with the typical loggia, patterned on the Italian architectural models for state buildings of the time. On the other hand, the dark prison is closely related with the times of the Ottoman occupation that succeeded the Genoese dominancy. The Ottoman era is equally strongly represented in the fortress by both privately owned and state buildings. The surrender without a fight to the Ottomans in 1566 did not bring any radical changes to the fortress. It steadily served as the main fortification of the island while being a dwelling place for the Ottoman ruling class. The former inhabitants, the Christians, were driven out by force following the Florentines' unsuccessful attempt to occupy Chios in 1599. Under the Ottoman yoke, the fortress was mainly inhabited by Turks and Jews, with the Ottoman Empire showing greater tolerance towards the latter. Many doorsteps leading to the houses' entrances that overlook the street are typical of older Jewish residences. Christians were only admitted to the fortress as long as they gained special permission. Little by little, the fortress was being transformed into a typical Ottoman walled city, with its mosques, baths, and fountains. The Beyrakli Mosque is one of the 3 rescued Muslim precincts in town.